Download and upload more than ever before with an ultra-fast fiber connection. With 3 simple steps, you can be the one with an SLT fiber optic connection. Visit slt.lk.
Tonight, another shooting. Wife of underworld figure Kanjipani Imran, who is arrested along with Makhandure Madhush, shot. Safeguarding depositors. Regulatory action taken by the central bank on the finance company PLC halts deposit taking and lending. Encouraging local produce. President says measures should be taken to develop local dairy industry for the sake of the country. Funding the wall. Trump to allocate $8 billion to fund Mexico border wall. Plans afoot to declare national emergency. All this and much more coming up on First at 9 this Friday, the 15th of February 2019.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to First at 9. I am Indhivari Yamuatha. Well, as the European Union presses Sri Lanka on reforms for continued market access, India says it will isolate Pakistan from the rest of the world. We do have all these stories and much more tonight, but we start off with your top story tonight. The wife of underworld figure Kanjipani Imran was shot at last night and she is currently receiving treatment at the National Hospital in Colombo. Police say that the injured Asha Fari, who also goes by the alias Kuduchuti, is involved in drug dealing. Kuduchuti was shot at by 2 unidentified gunmen who had arrived on a motorcycle at a residence in Kotahena last evening. Her husband Kanjipani Imran was recently arrested in Dubai along with drug kingpin Makhandure Madhush. In the meantime, it is also reported that the investigation reports compiled by Dubai police pertaining to the arrest of Makhandure Madhush along with 35 others will be sent to Interpol's office in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Dubai court has decided to further remand artist Amal Pereira and his son Nadimal Pereira until the 28th of this month. The second session of the joint commission meeting between the European Union and Sri Lanka was held in Brussels yesterday, during which the European Union reiterated its opposition to the use of death penalty in all circumstances and encouraged Sri Lanka to maintain its moratorium on executions with a view to abolishing the death penalty. Issuing a joint statement on the meeting, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs noted that Sri Lanka reaffirmed its commitments made to implement 27 conventions on human and labor rights, environment and good governance in order to benefit from the GSP Plus scheme. The country has garnered over 2.2 billion euros of exports since the reintroduction of the GSP Plus facility in 2017. In a human rights front, the EU reiterated its full support for the government's efforts to improve governance, human rights and reconciliation, the fight against corruption and strengthen economic growth, bearing in mind the resilience of democratic institutions which had prevailed during the political events in Sri Lanka late last year. The European Union also reiterated the need to repeal and replace the Prevention of Terrorism Act. The statement added that views were also exchanged on the implementation of the UNHRC resolution of October 1st, 2015, co-sponsored by Sri Lanka, where the EU stressed the need for further progress in the advancement of national reconciliation and extended its continued readiness to support the island nation in these efforts. Well, Sri Lanka is ranked 100 out of 190 countries in the World Bank's recent report titled Doing Business Index 2019, jumping 11 spots in the table. The improvement of Sri Lanka in the index relates last year in comparison to 2017. Speaking at a media briefing yesterday, Non-Cabinet Minister of Economic Reforms and Public Distribution, Dr. Harsha De Silva, expressed the government's determination to climb another 15 places in the next round of rankings. He, however, emphasized that this is only achievable by implementing further reforms. When quizzed on the progress and the process made in the Colombo International Financial City Law, Non-Cabinet Minister Dr. Harsha De Silva was adamant that the law will be based on the sovereignty of the country and hinted that investment incentives for the port city is expected to be announced during the budget reading.
All countries are competing for that same investment dollar. Every country is trying to attract FDI. So they are all doing reforms. This is for 2018. We are now working on 2019. We are determined to jump more than 11 places in 2019. We are determined to do that. We would like us to be in the mid-80s by the next time we are ranked. Because there is a perception that doing business in this country is very difficult. People think, in Singapore you can register a business in one day, but it takes months and lots of under-the-table payments, etc., to register a business in Sri Lanka. Absolute nonsense. Now we can register a business in one day.
The minister was also questioned on the progress made in the Colombo International Financial City Law.
The port city regulation, the legal framework is now being vetted by the AG's department, and we will be very, 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 very careful. Because this is our country, and anybody who wants to play in this country will have to play by our rules, our law. Everyone is interested in this place. Everyone wants a piece of this place. But we will do it the right way, because for generations to come, this land that we created, which the Survey General has now included in the new map of Sri Lanka, will have to be managed, developed, and made a platform to create wealth over, decades, centuries into the future. 50 acres of that land was given to another country on a sovereign rights basis. That is why we were opposed to the original port city plan. Right in front of the presidential secretary, 50 acres was somebody else's sovereign land. What they do there is not our business, according to the agreement that was signed. Now nobody has sovereign rights there. The laws will be based on the sovereignty of this nation, and we will go through as many revisions and improvements as necessary. Investment incentives are already confirmed. We will announce that in the budget.
President Maithripala Sirisena promises to transform the country into one which does not consume moonshine, highlighting that narcotics are the chief cause of poverty in the island. The head of state said that a special program to eradicate moonshine will be launched in the coming weeks. The president's remarks came at the Mahaweli Govi Abhisheka Awards 2018 held at the Nuwaragala Mahavidyalaya in Dehiyatta Kandiya this morning.
We should
improve the local dairy industry. I saw that a discussion in this regard being conducted in the political arena as well. The speaker also gave assurances that only liquid milk is served in Parliament. The Minister of Health too recently clarified doubts over milk powder. When I was the Minister of Health, I didn't have acquaintances of foreign dairy companies, and I didn't even allow them to enter the ministry. That was my principle. Foreign milk powder is not helpful when trying to keep the country's population healthy, although some try to justify it. Multinational companies that import milk powder might get upset with me for saying this, but the local dairy industry must improve in order for a country to develop. We should not let multinational dairy companies control our markets. The main cause of poverty is narcotics, and we must first eradicate them from rural areas. The progress of the projects I started during the last few years is evident, and I will launch a program to eradicate moonshine from the country in a few weeks' time. I will launch a special program to create a country which does not produce or consume moonshine.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe today took aim at inaction of provincial councils and their lack of attention on the public. Addressing a meeting at the district secretariat in Kilinochchi today, the Premier said that relevant officials should use the powers vested with the provincial councils in order to work for the people. Now, the Premier's alternative to the situation was simply to return power to provincial councils to the central government.
A progress review meeting on housing, resettlement and development projects in the north was held under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at the district secretariat in Kilinochchi today.
I'm here to take quick measures pertaining to the development and to identify what we missed. I'm disappointed that some officials do not take decisions on time. Powers have been divided by the Provincial Council. Do not hold positions in the Provincial Councils if nothing is going to be done. If so, it's better to return power to the government. In fact, it is the army who truly works with regards to civil activities. It is from the Tamil people I got to know this. Therefore, be dedicated and work towards the benefit of our people through the powers vested with the Provincial Councils. Many cases have been filed against the LTT and the military as well as the police by the previous government. We continued them since we had evidence. We cannot continue this and reconciliation should prevail. We should put an end to many things by uttering the truth and by asking for forgiveness. We have to build this country and we cannot be indebted to the world. We should also develop the north without letting it fall.
Leader of the opposition, Mahinda Rajapaksa, today criticized the Constitutional Assembly, saying its arbitrary actions are jeopardizing the country's process of governance. His comments came in a backdrop where various politicians, as well as the President, were critical of the Constitutional Council. The Constitutional Council has appointed, or rather was appointed under the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, and one of the aims of this council is to appoint 9 independent commissions and supervise them. And opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa also expressed confusion over the Muslim Congress and the Tamil National Alliance, who continue to call for devolution of power, failing to register their concerns over delayed provincial council elections in the north and east. Speaking with a group of representatives of Islamic civil organizations at his official residence today, the opposition leader also accused the United National Party of conning all ethnicities in the country.
Representatives of 7 Muslim civil organizations arrived at the official residence of the opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa today to hand over a letter expressing objections to the proposed 20th Amendment to the Constitution.
We asked the UNP to present their draft of the new constitution. Without doing that, they brought in some recommendations and proposals. This is complete fraud because they deceived all Sinhala, Tamil and Muslim people. That's the true situation today. Yes, when talking of democracy, they haven't even held elections. TNA and the Muslim Congress, who were demanding the 13th Amendment to give more power for provincial councils, don't say anything about postponement of provincial council elections in the east or north. I wonder why they don't talk about elections at the moment.
Muslim Congress
Well, former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa calls for an education system which empowers students both socially as well as financially.
The inaugural screening of the documentary based on the life of Dr. P.A. Kirivandeniya was held in Colombo yesterday.
The education system helped fashion a person's social life back then. Education also strengthens a person financially. This doesn't only concern our country because this is a global phenomenon. With time, academics realized that liberal arts systems, which existed back then in the university system, should be abolished and introduce courses which will back students financially. What is required today is a mixture of those two systems. I suggest that students be allowed to do skills-based activities from about grade 8.
Well, the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna vows to defeat the proposal to form a national government, which is set to be tabled in Parliament by the Leader of the House, Lakshman Kiriyalla, on the 20th of this month. Now, speaking at a media briefing today, UPFA MP D.V. Shanaka revealed that the JVP and the TNA will support the SLPP to this end. Meanwhile, speaking at a different forum, leader of the Pivithuru Helaurume, MP Uday Gammampila, said that the decision will be made with common consensus in fielding a presidential candidate of the alliance featuring the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
We saw Leader of the House, Lakshman Kiriyalla, saying that they will table the proposal to form a national government on the 20th of this month. But we would like to tell him that we will defeat it. The JVP and the TNA said they will support us. They have to, because if they are to seek votes from the public in the future, they will have to defeat this. The alliance is in formation, but it doesn't seem there will be elections. Minister Ranamaka says that they want to hold provincial council elections on the same day. How can this happen? It has been 1.5 years since the term of several provincial councils came to an end. It will be the same for the Uva Provincial Council in October, so it is impossible. Our hope is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, but we cannot make this decision by ourselves. We have to come to a common consensus. No, this will never happen. This is what the UNP wants and those amongst us who are contracted by the UNP to ensure this will happen. We will not allow it.
Residents of Aruwakkalu held protests today over the construction of its garbage disposal site, saying that it would have a negative impact on the environmental system surrounding the lagoon in Puttlam. Explaining their stance on the protest, the Ministry of Megapolis and Western Development, however, said that the residents are unaware of the project's value, which is being done in an eco-friendly manner. With the objective of providing a sustainable solution to the garbage disposal issue in Colombo, now the government has planned to construct a garbage disposal site in Aruwakkalu, which holds a capacity to store some 1,200 tons of garbage daily. Well, a special advisor to the Prime Minister of Japan is expected to visit Sri Lanka today. The Embassy of Japan in Colombo stated that special advisor to Japanese Premier and Member of Parliament Kentaro Sonora will arrive in the country for a 2-day official visit. According to the Japanese embassy, Sonora will be conducting discussions with senior government officials on strengthening bilateral relations between the two nations. We'll return with your business news after this.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
Welcome back. You're joining First at 9 and we have your business news ready for you. The Asian Development Bank has approved a $50 million loan to the Regional Development Bank of Sri Lanka to provide affordable and accessible credit to rural, micro, small and medium-sized enterprises in the country. Issuing a media communique today, ADB Financial Sector Specialist Takuya Hashrinu said that limited access to finance is a key barrier facing entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, and the project will not only directly fund long-term financing to micro and small enterprises outside of Colombo, but also structured to provide the regulatory capital that would leverage up to an additional $533 million of lending to MSMEs. The Asian Development Bank added that only about 30% of Sri Lankan firms have sufficient access to bank loans and other capital, with greater constraints are even created for micro and small enterprises led by women located in rural areas of the country. Taking you to the Colombo Stock Exchange, the all-share price index ended 0.39% weaker at 5,909.30 today, which is the lowest close since the 26th of October last year. Now, the turnover was some 965.6 million rupees, which is more than last year's daily average of 834 million rupees. Foreign investors, in the meantime, were net sellers of 590 million rupees worth of shares, and they have been net sellers of 5.2 billion rupees worth of stocks so far during this year. We have Siobhan Mendes from NDB Securities for a brief report on how markets performed today.
During the week, the ASPI lost 0.9%, mainly due to price losses in counters such as John Keel's Holdings, AIA Insurance and Distilleries. Similarly, the S&P SL20 decreased by 1%. The average daily turnover for the week was up from last week to 1.2 billion rupees. Furthermore, foreigners remained active for the week, closing as net sellers, where foreign sales accounted for nearly 77% of the total weekly turnover.
Well, the Sri Lankan rupee ended weaker today as dollar demand from importers weighed on the currency. It ended 180 rupees and 28 cents against the US dollar, and it posted a weekly loss of 0.42% for the week due to high dollar demand from importers and outflows from the stock market. The local currency has risen 2.2% so far this year as exporters converted dollars and foreign investors purchased government securities amid stabilizing investor confidence in Sri Lanka after the country repaid a $1 billion sovereign bond in mid-January. Here's a look at how the local currency traded against other major currencies across the world today. Well, the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to take several regulatory action to safeguard the interests of its depositors and stakeholders in the face of issues faced by financial institution, the Finance Company PLC. Accordingly, at the Monetary Board meeting held on the 8th of February, the decision was taken to suspend accepting new deposits, restricting withdrawals of deposits and restricting disbursement of loans and advances to facilitate the restructuring process of the company. Issuing a media communique, the central bank said that the Finance Company PLC was severely impacted by the failure of a number of financial institutions within the group in 2008, and the severe liquidity matters and problems need to be addressed immediately. The communique by the central bank also read that in order to facilitate the restructuring process, a panel of experts in banking and finance have been appointed by the central bank, and the company shall continue to negotiate and finalize the proposals of prospective investors, and the central bank will facilitate the company to proceed with suitable investors as well as per the applicable laws and regulations pertaining to the industry. In the meantime, the central bank also announced that all borrowers of the company are strictly advised to pay their dues, and it is further expected that these measures will greatly assist potential investors of the finance company to ensure the safety and soundness of the financial system. Well, the financial regulator also informed the depositors of the finance company that it is taking additional measures and closely monitoring the operations of the company to protect the rights of the depositors, while interest due to depositors will be continually paid due to these depositors as per central bank directions. At the meeting held at the Monetary Board, the attention was also drawn to the fact that the Deposit Insurance and Liquidity Support Scheme will safeguard the interest of all depositors to a maximum of 600,000 deposits or rupees per deposit, which will cover 93% of the depositors in full. Taking you to news overseas, the White House official says President Donald Trump plans to sign a compromise border security measure today and then announce that he is issuing and using executive action, including declaring a national emergency to spend $8 billion for border barriers. The move will end for now a bitter standoff with Congress over his signature campaign promise. But it will likely spark new constitutional dispute over whether the president is overstepping his authority. Or the initial news of Trump's decision came via Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who said Trump would sign the bill to avoid a shutdown and then declare a national emergency at the same time. A White House official said that Trump is expected to announce that he will use executive action to draw on a variety of administration funding sources to help finance construction of his wall on the border with Mexico. The official did not, however, specify where or whether all of the money would come from or whether the White House executive action would withstand a court challenge. Well, taking you to our neighboring India, India has said it will ensure the complete isolation of Pakistan after a suicide bomber killed 45 soldiers in Indian-administered Kashmir. Federal Minister Arun Jaitley violence in recent years. I'll return with your sports news after this short break. To stay with us on First at 9.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
A Court of Appeal today decided to postpone the hearing of a writ petition filed by Mohan De Silva and Ravin Wickramaratne against the disqualification of their nominations for the looming Sri Lanka cricket elections. Now, the case was called off a court today before a judge bench comprised of Deepali Vijayasundara and Arjuna Obesekara, following which the hearings of the petition were postponed to the 20th of this month, a day before the election. Candidacy of Mohan De Silva and Ravin Wickramaratne for the forthcoming elections of Sri Lanka cricket were rejected by the Appeal Advisory Committee appointed by the Sports Minister, in a backdrop where the ICC has given the final chance for Sri Lanka cricket to hold these elections of the local governing body. Sri Lanka's ICC membership is also at stake if the court order postpones the election. Well, that's all from us here tonight from First at 9. Do log on to www.otherderana.lk for the very latest, and do not forget to follow us on our social media sites, YouTube and Facebook. I'm Indivari Amuatha. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.